On August 30th, 1987, the streets of Tel Aviv were filled with smoke and anger. Thousands of engineers, pilots, and mechanics were rioting. They weren't protesting a war. They weren't protesting the economy. They were protesting the death of a dream. Israel had done the impossible. A tiny nation, surrounded by enemies, had built a fighter jet that was superior to anything in the American or Soviet arsenal. It was called the Lavi, the Lion. It was faster than the F-16. It was more maneuverable. It was a masterpiece, but it would never go to war. Because 6,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., a decision had been made. The Lavi was too good. It was a threat to American profits. And so, the order came down, kill the Lion. Welcome to Shadow Works. Today we open the file on the IAI Lavi, the greatest fighter jet that was murdered by its own allies. To understand the Lavi, you have to understand the paranoia of Israel in the 1980s. The design they came up with was radical. It used a delta wing combined with canards, small wings near the nose. This configuration is unstable, but incredibly agile. It allowed the Lavi to point its nose at an enemy instantly, a critical advantage in the close-range dogfights of the Middle East. The cockpit was designed by combat veterans. It was the first fighter in history to prioritize user experience. It had fewer switches and more screens. It was a plane designed by pilots for pilots. When the prototype took its first flight in 1986, the test pilot landed and said, "This handles better than anything I have ever flown." But in Washington, nobody was celebrating. The U.S. government had funded 40% of the Lavi's development. They thought they were paying for a cheap, low-tech jet that Israel could use for ground attacks. They didn't realize they were funding a competitor. Northrop and General Dynamics, the makers of the F-16 and F-18, were furious. They looked at the Lavi's specs and realized the truth. He knew that killing the Lavi meant killing Israel's aerospace independence. But the Prime Minister, Yitzhak Shamir, looked at the budget. He looked at the American threats. By a single vote 12-11, the Lavi was canceled. The news hit the factory like a bomb. 5,000 engineers lost their jobs overnight. Many of them left the country, taking their genius to NASA or Boeing. It was a brain drain that set Israeli aviation back 20 years. The prototypes were grounded. One was put in a museum, the other was scrapped. But did the Lavi really die? 10 years later, China unveiled a new fighter jet, the Chengdu J-10. Look at it. The delta wing, the canards, the intake under the belly. It is a carbon copy of the Lavi. Rumors have swirled for decades that Israel, angry at the American betrayal, secretly sold the Lavi blueprints to China. Israel denies it. China denies it. But the metal doesn't lie. The U.S. killed the Lavi to protect the F-16. But in doing so, they may have accidentally armed the Chinese Air Force of the 21st century. The Lavi was destroyed by politics. But some machines are destroyed by their own pilots. Join us next time as we investigate the SR-71 Blackbird's only fatal accident, the day the uncrashable plane broke apart in mid-air. Click here to subscribe. The archives are open.